More hostages are released last night. The announcement marks the fifth group of hostages to be released by Hamas since Israel agreed to a ceasefire with the terrorist group on Friday. The ceasefire is expected to continue through at least today and possibly longer if more hostages are returned. More on this in today's show. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley got a key endorsement yesterday that will be followed by a lot of campaign cash for the future. We all love our dogs, right? If you've listened to me for any period of time, you know how much we love Jesse and Simon. If there was a drug that you could give your family pet to prolong its life, would you do it? A San Francisco pharmaceutical company is counting on you to say yes, as they believe they're close to having just that drug available. And with just a month left before retirement, South Carolina Circuit Judge Clifton Newman sentenced disgraced lawyer and convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh for his financial crimes yesterday. In another South Carolina crime story, Notorious South Carolina inmate Susan Smith reportedly has told one of her several wannabe boyfriends that she would make a good stepmom as her first parole hearing approaches in 2024 in her life sentence for drowning her two boys. Who in their right mind would allow this lady to get close to their kids? Welcome and glad to have you join me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. I'm Joey Hudson, and this is Just the Truth.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson Bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson Bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
The Israel Defense Forces announced last night that the 12 newly released hostages are currently inside Israeli territory. In a statement, the IDF said that their Special Forces Division is currently with the 12 released hostages. The new statement said, after an initial medical assessment, the released hostages will continue to be accompanied by IDF soldiers as they make their way to Israeli hospitals, where they'll be reunited with their families. The Israel Defense Forces salutes and embraces the released hostages upon the return home. The Israeli military said that they remain determined to bring home all of the hostages that were kidnapped by Hamas from Israel. In their press statement, they said the IDF, together with the entire Israeli security establishment, will continue to operate to bring home all the hostages. The U.S. military yesterday delivered its first of 3 rounds of humanitarian and aid that was intended for the people of Gaza. This according to the Pentagon. Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Ryder told reporters that the U.S. airlifted 24.5 metric tons of UN humanitarian supplies to provide vitally needed medical supplies, warm clothing, and food and nutrition assistance to the people of Gaza. U.S. aid requested that the supplies be transported via U.S. Air Force C-17 cargo plane, Ryder said. The aircraft arrived early Tuesday morning in Egypt, where it was transported into Gaza and distributed by UN agencies. Some good news, Abigail Iden, the 4-year-old girl who was released by Hamas captors on Sunday evening, was discharged yesterday from Snyder Children's Medical Center. Abigail was 4. You may recall she actually celebrated her 4th birthday while a hostage of the terrorist. She was discharged from the hospital earlier on Tuesday morning, we're told. The staff at Snyder Children's Medical Center were excited alongside her at this achievement. Abigail was discharged today following treatment from the moment of her return to Israel on Sunday in the specially assigned department at Snyder's Children's Medical Center, the statement read. The hospital said that Iden was treated for psychosocial providers or was treated by psychosocial providers after being held in captivity for nearly 2 months. Her parents, of course, were killed by Hamas terrorists on October 7th, her dad literally shielding her with his body. Also, an Israeli doctor says that the 84-year-old hostage, Elma Abraham, is in better condition after she was rushed to a hospital upon being released by Hamas. Abraham suffered from many underlying illnesses, according to the report. She had received medication essential to her life on a regular basis before she was kidnapped, And those savages evidently did not provide any of the medication to her while in captivity. The statement says Elma was evacuated in a very difficult condition when all vitals, her vital signs, level of consciousness, pulse, blood pressure, blood, body temperature, and blood sugar was extremely, extremely low, Dr. Klein said. This is the reason for the definition of immediate danger to her life. Klein added that her condition was most likely caused by not receiving those essential medications. He reported that upon arrival, she was unconscious in a very difficult situation while she was breathing and receiving support for her collapsed buddy system. I'm happy to inform that in the last few hours, there's been improvement in her conditions, the doctor said. I mean, it's just amazing and terrifying to think about what the rest of the hostages, the conditions that they're being held in. And that human beings, other human beings, would actually treat their fellow human being like this. An 84-year-old woman who needed her medications being held for just over almost 2 months without those medications? Wow. Senator Tom Tillis announced on X that he and other senators watched graphic footage related to Hamas's terrorist attacks. He along with some of his colleagues, he posted this on X. Today, my Senate colleagues and I watched footage of the devastation caused by Hamas's horrific terrorist attack against Israel. What we saw was not for the faint of heart. The North Carolina Republican then said that Hamas was pure evil and must be destroyed. He posted, Hamas has made it clear that they will stop at nothing to eliminate Israel and its people. As Israel's longtime ally and friend, we must do everything we can to support its efforts to defend itself and destroy Hamas. Meanwhile, Senator Chuck Schumer announced yesterday that he's going to be making a major address about anti-Semitism sometime today as the Israel-Hamas war continues. Schumer, who serves as the majority leader of the U.S. Senate, called hatred against Jews a crisis in the United States. He said anti-Semitism is a crisis in the country. This was posted on X. As the highest-ranking Jewish elected official, I feel compelled to speak out about it. I'll be giving a major address on it on Wednesday, he said. 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your comments are welcome on the Truth text line. You can also leave a voice message, and your emails are welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. In presidential politics, thedailycaller.com reporting that several Republican lawmakers from the key early nominating states of Iowa and New Hampshire, who support Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for president, slammed Americans for Prosperity Action's endorsement of former South Carolina Governor and UN Ambassador Nikki Haley yesterday in statements exclusively provided to the Daily Caller News Foundation. AFP, they said AFP was started by billionaire brothers Charles and David Koch, the sons of Fred Koch, who founded the multi-billion-dollar holding company Koch Industries. It's the second largest private corporation in the country. 3 state legislators from New Hampshire and 3 from Iowa blasted AFP's political arm for endorsing Haley, arguing that it will only help former President Donald Trump in the primary and encourage voters to buck the establishment in 2024. Now, the AFP Action Committee, you may have received one of their many pieces of mail over the past few months. They weren't actually endorsing a candidate, but were telling you how a Donald Trump candidacy could lead to a second term for Joe Biden. Have you received some of those mail pieces? Those were primarily from AFP Action. Again, this is the Political Action Committee of Americans for Prosperity, who, by the way, do a lot of good things. Americans for Prosperity is a great grassroots organization. They have a wonderful program in South Carolina that works on a lot of issues that you and I agree on within the state legislature. But this is their national organization. New Hampshire State House Majority Leader Jason Osborne told the Daily Caller, quote, "It is sad to see an organization that exists to oppose cronyism, unrestrained spending, and endless wars pass up the opportunity to support such a clear and obvious champion of its own stated principles, like Governor Ron DeSantis, in favor of one with a very different record and rhetoric. I trust the engaged voters of Iowa and New Hampshire to make better choices, he said. In the Iowa House Majority Leader Matt Winscheidel told the Daily Caller News Foundation, Nikki Haley is not a true conservative, so it makes sense that a pro-open border, pro-jailbreak D.C. political group chose to support a pro-open border, pro-jailbreak D.C. candidate. The truth is Ron DeSantis is the only true conservative in this race, and continued ignorance of this fact all but guarantees Donald Trump to be the nominee come January. But I'm confident in Iowans who will see through this political nonsense. The Koch brothers, their networks, AFP Action, which is known for heavily financing Republican candidates' campaigns through its support behind Governor Nikki Haley, arguing that she is, quote, a candidate who can turn the page and win. The group abstained from endorsing candidates in 2016. They did not endorse anyone in 2020 presidential elections, and they're known for being highly critical of Trump, according to the Economic Times. Haley's campaign spokesperson Ken Farnasco told the Daily Caller News Foundation, Nikki is honored to have the support of Americans for Prosperity Action, including its millions of conservative grassroots members all across the country. Ron DeSantis and his friends are throwing a temper tantrum because they're losing. The poll showed Nikki Haley is second in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. This is a two-person race between one man and one woman. Haley's endorsement comes after she has recently piqued the interest of Wall Street executives, which critics have slammed her for courting the establishment and big donors who promote environmental, social, and governance, the ESG factors in business, and have ties to China. DeSantis supporter New Hampshire State Representative James Spillane told the Daily Caller, quote, this endorsement is just another data point for what the Washington establishment class has made clear all cycle. They do not want Ron DeSantis in the White House because he is a real conservative who they will not be able to control. The most important endorsement is not from some outside political group, but the voters, he said. Governor DeSantis has the backing of 300 state legislators nationwide, with 65 in New Hampshire and 41 in Iowa, according to his campaign. In Iowa, his campaign noted DeSantis has 8 times as many state lawmaker endorsements than Haley and twice the amount of Trump. Iowa State Representative John Dunwell told the Daily Caller, the reality is there is no path to victory for Nikki Haley here in Iowa or in any other early primary state. And this endorsement only helps Donald Trump. Ron DeSantis is the only true conservative running in this race, and if we hope to revive America, we need President DeSantis. DeSantis also recently notched key endorsements from prominent Iowa conservatives, including Republican Governor Kim Reynolds and Bob Vander Plaats, the president and CEO of the Family Leader. Iowa State Senator Jesse Green said Iowans know better than to follow the will of the ruling class in Washington. Here in the Hawkeye State, we know there's only one candidate who has been doing the work and has the conservative record to prove that he will follow through on securing the border, holding the Mexican drug cartels accountable, and getting this economy back on track, and that is Ron DeSantis. DeSantis is in second behind Trump with 17.5% support in Iowa, followed closely by Haley at 15.3%, according to the 538 survey compilation. In New Hampshire, DeSantis is in fourth at 7.7% behind Trump, Haley, and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. New Hampshire State Representative Erica Leon told the Daily Caller, Nikki Haley has no path to victory, but the Wall Street donor class, the establishment media, and D.C. political groups believe their endorsements and their money override the will of the people and are attempting to handpick a globalist hawk for the Republican nominee. He went on to say, she went on to say, this does nothing but boost Donald Trump and hurts our country's chances of electing someone who will truly turn this country around. Granite Staters will not be fooled by the D.C. ruling class and will vote for Ron DeSantis, the only true conservative, in January. Another blow to mandating electric vehicles, this time from Democrat Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont. He is withdrawing his plan to mandate future electric vehicle purchases after the proposal received bipartisan pushback from lawmakers on a key legislative panel. So here's what's happening. You may recall that Lamont very much supported California's plan back in the summer. He ultimately pulled this proposal just 4 months after unveiling it and characterizing it as, quote, a decisive action to meet our climate pollution reduction targets. Now, just back in July, Governor Lamont unveiled the proposal. It tethered Connecticut's emission standards to those set in California, which mandate that every passenger vehicle sold would be electric by 2035. I mean, that's just over a decade from now. It was the most aggressive target of its kind nationwide. Connecticut Senate Republican leader Kevin Kelly said in a statement, "Common sense has finally prevailed. The governor's decision to withdraw the regulations is a reasoned approach to address the growing concerns raised by working and middle-class families. Adopting California emission standards, which ban the sale of gas-powered cars, is a substantial policy shift which must be decided by the General Assembly," he said. Kelly is one of the Republican members of the Connecticut General Assembly's 14-member bicameral Legislative Regulation Review Committee, which is tasked with approving regulations proposed by state agencies. The GOP minority leader and other Republicans on the panel led the opposition to the proposed electric vehicle mandate over the last several months. After Democrats on the committee voiced some concerns of their own with the regulations, Governor Lamont ultimately pulled the proposal from the agenda of a committee hearing yesterday when lawmakers were set to vote on it, probably vote against it. State Senator John Kissel said this is a prudent step. The people's elected representatives are the ones who should be making this decision. Something so life-changing, something that will take our choice away, needs to be decided by the full state legislature. Another Republican on the panel, State Senator Paul Cicerella, said Democrats realized there was no plan to implement the EV mandate proposed by Governor Lamont. In addition to the EV mandate that was mirroring California's regulations under Lamont's proposal released back in July, 75% of trucks and buses would need to be electric by 2035. The passenger car mandate was enabled by a bill passed by the Connecticut legislature previously that ties the state's clean air rules to California's programs. The latter mandate impacting trucks and buses was enabled by the 2022 Connecticut Clean Air Act. Last year, Environmental Protection Agency reinstated California's authority under the Clean Air Act to implement its own emission standards and electric vehicle sales mandates, allowing other states to also adopt those same rules. The state then approved its 2035 mandate, which states like New Mexico and New Jersey have also followed suit. Governor Lamont's decision to halt the proposal marks a real setback for the EV industry, and again, a win for common sense. Changing the subject for a moment, you know how much I love dogs. Peg and I love Jesse and Simon. They're part of our family, as many of you love your dogs. There's a biotech company in San Francisco who believes they may be close to having a drug that could keep our furry friends here with us much longer. The details on that in just a minute. First, let me tell you about myphdweightloss.com. That's the website you need to remember, myphdweightloss.com. You ready to lose the weight for the last time? You ready to get healthy? You ready to feel better, to be able to focus on things, be able to do things that you haven't been able to do in a long, long time? Maybe dig deep in the back of that closet and pull some of those clothes you haven't been able to wear in years back out. If I'm talking about you, then let me encourage you to make that first call and set up your initial consultation with PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. 3 years ago, I was introduced to Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, and boy, am I glad I made that call. Call them today and set up your initial consultation, 864-252-4925. Be sure and tell them you heard about them here on Just the Truth, 864-252-4925. You can visit them online as well at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers and their fans. So according to Wired.com, there's a well-established inverse relationship between a dog size and its expected lifespan. Bernese Mountain Dogs and Great Danes live just 6 to 8 years. For example, while Corgis can live up to 15 years. Chihuahuas can live to 20. San Francisco biotech company Loyal wants to close that gap, and they're developing an experimental drug that would extend the lifespan and improve the quality of life of large and giant dog breeds. Today, the company announced that based on early data, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has determined that Loyal's drug has a reasonable expectation of effectiveness. The company hasn't yet shown that its drug actually extends lifespan, but the FDA decision signals the agency's confidence in Loyal's approach, and the drug will soon be tested in a bigger trial. Loyal CEO Celine Halua says big dog owners want more time with their dogs. It's really heartbreaking to people that they don't live that long. She argues that the wide variety in dog sizes isn't natural, but a result of selective breeding by humans to create dogs with certain physical traits or that can perform specific tasks. On average, mixed breed dogs live longer than their purebred counterparts. We've all been in that position, haven't we? Jesse and Simon are Cocker Spaniels. We've had a couple of Cocker Spaniels who have been with us 16 years, almost 17 in one case, little Coco that we lost a few years ago. But larger breeds, maybe 8, 10 years. So far, according to Wired.com, the FDA has not approved any drugs to expand the lifespan of animals or humans for that matter. Linda Rhodes, former CEO of pet biotech company Aratana Therapeutics, said this is completely novel. It's difficult to study life extension drugs in people, she says, because humans live relatively longer lives than other species. But starting with dogs and the breeds with the shortest lives could yield important clues. The implication for other species, including humans, is pretty profound, she said. Loyal's experimental drug is an injection, we're told. It'd be designed to be given every 3 to 6 months by a veterinarian. The drug is meant to lower levels of a hormone called IGF-1, which, according to scientists, is involved in growth and metabolism and has been linked to dog size. Large dogs have a genetic variant that leads to high levels of IGF-1, and small dogs have a different variant that, of course, results in lower levels. Scientists believe that by inhibiting this hormone, it's shown to increase lifespan in worms, flies, and rodents. Now, I don't know how you inject a worm or a fly. Well, actually, I do a worm, but a fly? How do you inject a fly with something? Anyway, evidently they have. In humans, both very high and very low levels increase mortality risk, while a mid-range is associated with the lowest mortality, they say. In early studies, Loyal dosed 130 research dogs with its investigational drug. Halua says that the company has shown that it can reduce IGF-1 levels in large dogs to those seen in medium-sized dogs. 2 dogs had loose stools for a day or 2 after receiving the injection, but beyond that, they say no major side effects were observed. To determine the drug's effect on lifespan, the company is planning a bigger study that will start in 2024 or possibly 2025. They hope to enroll about 1,000 large and giant breed companion dogs that are at least 7 years old. Each will receive the experimental drug or a placebo. Halua says that the company aims to have its drug on the market by 2026, but first, Loyal still has to prove to the FDA, which regulates both human and veterinary medicines, that the injection is safe and that the drug can be reliably manufactured. At this point, or at that point, the FDA can grant conditional approval, a temporary authorization that lasts 5 years, and allows the drug to be sold by prescription. During that time, Loyal will collect effectiveness data and apply for full approval. Loyal is also working on 2 other drugs, a pill version for large and giant dog breeds and a pill for older dogs of all breeds. In a study published last month, Danica Banash, a veterinary geneticist at the University of California, Davis, who specializes in canine genetics, says that the IGF-1 is only one factor thought to be associated with dog size and longevity. She says, as for targeting it, I think it's a bit premature. We know that smaller breeds live longer than larger breeds. We just don't know how much of that is due to influence of the IGF-1, she said. Interesting. Giving an experimental drug to healthy dogs is a different from treating sick dogs. Some of the groups say that are opposing this type of experimentation. Linda Rhodes says that humans owe it to dogs to make up for the genetic misfortunes they've inherited due to hundreds of years of breeding. She said, we've bred dogs to have problems because we want them to look or act a certain way, she says. It's our responsibility to figure out how we can help. If available, would you choose to do this? Would you authorize your veterinarian or take your dog, your large breed dog, to a veterinarian and get this injection every 3 to 6 months if it's available, and it could buy you more time with your dog? Love to get your comments, and they are welcome on the Truth text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. You can also leave a voice message, and your emails are always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. So we're in that time of year where a lot of areas will start lighting their Christmas trees. It's always a big deal in New York's Rockefeller Plaza, where the so-called nation's Christmas tree is lighted. Unfortunately, this year, authorities in New York City say that they're a little concerned about pro-Hamas disruptions at the Rockefeller Center tree lighting. Authorities there say that they are encouraging elevated vigilance during this year's Christmas tree lighting ceremony at Rockefeller Plaza, because they're afraid that pro-Palestinian protesters will flood the event. The annual ceremony, hosted this year by the Grammy-winning singer Kelly Clarkson, is expected to draw tens of thousands to Midtown Manhattan. That's today. And it's always, that's a relatively small area that people cram into. Peg and I have been there many times over the year. Glad I'm not there this year. Not sure that I would go. We stay right across the street from Rockefeller Plaza when we're in New York. There's no specific or credible threats, according to NYPD. A memo that was leaked to the New York Post yesterday showed that the NYPD believes the event could be an easy target for malicious actors. The incitements of violence by terrorist groups against the U.S. Since Hamas's deadly October 7th attack could resonate with U.S.-based homegrown violent extremists, the memo says. Those calls could mobilize some to action, necessitating elevated vigilance. Some pro-Palestine organizations in the U.S. have already announced their plans to demonstrate during various tree lighting ceremonies, but there are no indications that the demonstrations will turn violent. Several groups noted that the ceremony falls on the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people this year, a holiday that typically is observed by the United Nations delegations. Less than a week ago, a group of 34 pro-Palestinian protesters were busted for disrupting the high-profile Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. We saw that on NBC. 4 were arrested and charged with serious offenses, including obstruction of governmental administration and trespassing. The other 30 were issued summonses to appear in criminal court. On the Truth text line, several of you commented on the White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre's take of how much more affordable Thanksgiving was this year because of Bidenomics. Christy wrote on the Truth text line, "Good morning. Listening to the KJP answer to the affordable Thanksgiving dinner. What an idiot," Christy writes. How many people opted for a non-traditional meal due to the prices of turkey and ham this year? $35 for a ham? How many hours does someone have to work for one ham if they're making minimum wage? Nothing is affordable now. Have a blessed week, and I miss you on live radio. I don't even turn it on anymore. Well, Christy, I miss you guys as well, but glad you're listening to Just the Truth podcast. Ace writes on the Truth text line, again in response to Karine Jean-Pierre, she hates being put in the spotlight. If a press secretary were to be fined for slander, she would be in jail. P.S. Great job on the show. I think you need a TV show. Now, Ace, I have a face for radio, or in this case, a face for a podcast. Our positive, encouraging text for the day. A positive attitude may not solve all of your problems, but it will annoy enough people to make it worth the effort. And that is so true. God bless, the texter says. Thank you. Your comments are welcome on the Truth text line as well, 864-477-JOEY. From my email inbox, Janice wrote this: like many citizens, I've wondered and tried hard to understand why Trump has such a remarkable following. It's obvious why he probably should not. Then a friend sent me this raccoon story. It makes no difference about your political leanings. This is just a good explanation of why, or it's as good as any I've come across. So here's how it goes. If you really want to know how the majority of people feel, this applies to both Democrats and Republicans. Read below, it says it all. The story goes like this. You've been on vacation for 2 weeks. You come home, and your basement is infested with raccoons. Hundreds of rabid, messy, mean raccoons have overtaken your basement. You want them gone immediately. You call the city, 4 different exterminators, but nobody can handle the job. But there's this one guy, and he guarantees you to get rid of them, so you hire him. You don't care if the guy smells. You don't care if the guy swears. You don't care if he's an alcoholic. You don't care how many times he's been married. You don't care if he voted for Obama. You don't care if he has a plumber's crack. You simply want those raccoons gone. You want your problem fixed. He's the guy. He's the best, period. The email goes on. Here's why we want Trump. Yes, he's a bit of an ass. Yes, he's an egomaniac, but we don't care. The country is a mess because politicians suck. The Republicans and Democrats can be two-faced and gutless, and illegals are everywhere. We want it all fixed. We don't care that Trump is crude. We don't care that he insults people. We don't care that he once was friendly with Hillary. We don't care that he has changed positions. We don't care that he's been married 3 times. We don't care that he fights with Megyn Kelly and Rosie O'Donnell. We don't care what he does. We don't care that he doesn't know the name of some Muslim terrorist. This country is weak, bankrupt. Our enemies are making fun of us. We're being invaded by illegals. We're becoming a nation of victims where every Tom, Ricardo, and Hasid is a special group with special rights to a point where we don't even recognize the country we were born and raised in. And we just want it fixed. And Trump is the only guy who seems to understand what the people want. It goes on to say, we're sick of politicians, sick of Democratic Party, sick of the Republican Party, sick of illegals. We just want this thing fixed. Trump may not be a saint, but he doesn't have lobbyist money holding him. He doesn't have political correctness restraining him. All you know is that he has been very successful, a good negotiator. He has built a lot of things, and he's also not a politician. He's not a cowardly politician, and he says he'll fix it. And we believe him because he's too much of an egotist to be proven wrong or looked at and called a liar. Also, we don't care if the guy has bad hair. We just want those raccoons gone out of our house right now. The email says, you're welcome to pass this on. I feel this is why thousands of people who haven't voted in 25 years are getting involved. The raccoons have to go. Your emails are welcome as well. Joey@joeyhudson.com. With just a few months before retiring, South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Clifton Newman sentenced disgraced lawyer and convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh for his financial crimes yesterday. Before we get to that, portions of today's show brought to you by my friends at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. Are you tired of buying appliances from inexperienced sales staff who have absolutely no appliance knowledge? There's so many different options, brands, features, that it's tough figuring out which one's right for you, isn't it? And how long do you need for this to last? You know, appliances are pretty expensive. You don't want to make the wrong choice. That's why I recommend shopping at Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating, nearly perfect reviews on Google, and the team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they have the knowledge that you need to have confidence in your purchase. They'll show you around the warehouse, over 11,000 square feet, slam-packed with new appliances, and they'll help you find the ideal solution. Check out their new Overstock Appliance Center. It's in the market at the mill in Pickens for some great clearance pricing. Discounted Appliance Warehouse is worth the short drive to Pickens. Find them online at dawpickens.com, dawpickens.com. So South Carolina Circuit Court Judge Clifton Newman sentenced disgraced lawyer and convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh to 27 years yesterday for his financial crimes. Murdaugh, who of course is serving 2 life terms in prison for the 2021 murders of his wife and son, agreed to plead guilty on 22 counts. They include breach of trust, money laundering, forgery, and tax evasion. Out of about 100 total counts, totaling as much as $10 million in exchange for a 27-year prison sentence. I mean, I don't really understand why there was even a negotiation there. I mean, the man has 2 life sentences. What's another 27 years going to mean to him? South Carolina prosecutor Creighton Waters said there were so many individuals that were trusting of Alex Murdaugh, and that is how this decade-long scheme was able to take place. And ultimately, we had people who came to Mr. Murdaugh for help, people that he told he was going to help, and in many instances, there was significant funds that Mr. Murdaugh paid to those individuals, but that was how the scheme usually worked. It was a sleight of hand. He added that Murdaugh's trustworthiness, his power and influence among community members, lawyers, and banks in the area helped him get away with these financial crimes. Murdaugh addressed the courtroom and the victims of his crimes after hearing from several of them and their lawyers. He said, "Your pain and your hurt is palpable. I get it. It's reasonable, and I promise you that it resonates with me. I hope that the time will come when you can look back, and despite the things that I did, I care about each of you because I do." Sure. Newman called Murdaugh empty in his closing statements, delivered just over a month before the judge is set to retire. Also, in another South Carolina crime story, remember Susan Smith, the notorious South Carolina mother who killed her 2 young sons? She reportedly told one of several wannabe boyfriends that she would make a good stepmom. A good stepmom as her first parole hearing approaches in her life sentence for drowning her 2 sons. Smith is now 52. She told one of her admirers, evidently she has multiple admirers who she corresponds with and who she talks with on the phone on a regular basis. She told one of her admirers on this recorded jailhouse phone from the Leith Correctional Institute last month that she could see herself around kids. This according to transcripts that were published by the Messenger. "You'd be great, babe," responded the boyfriend, one of more than a half a dozen corresponding with Smith. Per South Carolina Department of Corrections records, Smith began her 29-year sentence on November 4th, 1994. You remember the case, I'm sure. It caught the nation's... we were just enthralled by the whole story. Initially, she was 22 at the time. Smith told investigators that a black man had carjacked her while the 2 boys were inside the car. Days later, she wept alongside her husband, David Smith, as this played out on national television, pleading for her 2 sons' safe return. She said at one point, "Your mama loves you so much." Ultimately, Smith admitted that there was no carjacker, that she had let her car roll into the John D. Long Lake and watched as the vehicle sunk with her 2 children strapped into their car seats and drowned. Her prospective affair partner and ex-boyfriend, Tom Findlay, wrote a letter a week earlier that prosecutors said drove Miss Smith to kill her 2 young sons. In the letter, he wrote, "Susan, I could really fall for you, but like I've told you before, there are some things about you that aren't suited for me, and yes, I'm speaking about your children," he wrote. Smith long argued that she did not drown her children for a man's sake, claiming instead that she had a psychotic breakdown. Now relatives are not shocked by the near half-dozen men who are reaching out to Smith, saying that the guys always flocked to Susan. She's always been into guys, obviously. One relative told the Messenger it would be the best case scenario for her to be in a relationship, so she's hoping to find the right man to live with when she gets out. Her first parole hearing is scheduled for November of 2024. She plans to plead for her release. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio to lose weight for the last time. Visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined our mailing list yet, be sure and visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. Thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Keep your comments coming via the Truth text line, 864-477-JOEY. And keep your emails coming as well, joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back tomorrow. Until then, just remember, God's got this. He's still in control.